We are Analytical Media. We are a consortium, a group of therapists, college professors, and well-published peer-reviewed authors. Today, we're going to talk about communication. We have several videos dedicated to communication. Today, we're going to analyze a communication to give you the meaning of the communication. We're going to look to Elon Musk's Tera Fab speech announcement or presentation, which he gave just a few days ago. Now, what did it mean? Well, we're going to digest that for you. Most of his speech, his presentation, perhaps 60% or more, dealt with outer space, about moving to the stars. It focused on why moving towards a multi-planetary and eventually a galactic civilization, a civilization that streams across the galaxy, was so important. He talked about the Kardashev scale, a way to rate a civilization by how much power it gets from its star or its sun. More than half the speech was dedicated to a discussion of the galaxy and our need to expand beyond Earth and our solar system so that we could go out into the galaxy where there are millions of other stars or suns, and we could inhabit planets along the way and humans would spread across this galaxy. He didn't mention going to another galaxy, but he might have forgot that. We're going to another galaxy, I'm sure. He'd like that, and more power to him. He's very well intended. However, the problem is, this speech had nothing to do with the galaxies, our galaxy, spreading mankind from inhabitable planets around various suns. It had nothing to do with that. It was about he wants to build a factory to make chips. Microchips, chips, computer chips, memory chips, logic chips, all the chips that are in your car, your phone, your PlayStation, your computer, even at this point in time inside your monitors and inside microphones. He wants to build a plant to do that. It had nothing to do with moving across the galaxy. He even ended the speech by moving back to the beginning, to the big picture, talking about describing the enabling of abundant intelligence and energy so that mankind can expand among the stars or across the stars. This whole speech had to do with artificial intelligence or AI. It had nothing to do with rocket ships to take man somewhere. Nothing. But that was the basis of the speech. But really what he was announcing was a giant facility to build chips in, something that Tesla doesn't do now. He wants to build some ordinary chips, but he'd like to build chips that would also be hardened against radiation from space. Chips that will run hotter than they could run on Earth. And these would be included in orbital AI satellites, which would then account for 80% of Tesla's or AI's or XAI's AI facilities. Its capabilities, 80% of it would be in outer space, orbiting the Earth. Musk plans for this factory to be gigantic. But he points out that even though they buy chips from everybody else that makes them, NVIDIA and many other people, what they can buy from these companies, what's available to Musk's companies, are only about 2% of what would be needed. So he has to build this, in his estimation. Nothing like this would have been built before. Here's where it would be designed in one building. The lithography would occur in one building. The actual chip manufacturing would occur in one building. The production then, the output would be tested in that same building and then go back to the designers and then back to the lithographers in a loop, something that isn't done now anywhere in the world. Here's a quote from Musk. He says, "We either build the Tera Fab or we don't have the chips. The rate of supplier expansion is much less than we would like." So he can't buy enough chips, so he has to make them himself. Now, AI needs those chips, there's no doubt about it. That's why NVIDIA stock has gone up so dramatically. It's doubled in less than a year and gone up many times before then. But it did double in the last year. So Tesla is building these chips. They buy chips now from Samsung and TSMC and other people too, but mainly from those people. Those people supply the world, but they don't expand quick enough for Elon. He wants more chips and he wants them now, and he needs them for AI. He doesn't need them for the spaceships that are going to carry people to distant planets and galaxies. He needs them to power the artificial intelligence, which is really a computer, a gigantic computer. And if Elon Musk forgot the name of multiplanetary evolving to a race that goes to multi-planets, multi-stars, if he forgot all that, he'd still need these chips, as would the rest of the world. He argues that the Earth is power constrained. It cannot provide the energy necessary to drive these AI computers. And he plans to spend many billions of dollars by leaving the Earth, moving to the Earth's orbit with satellites that will get their energy directly from the sun through solar panels and will cool. Cooling's terribly important. Will cool the satellites by radiating the heat out into space. If you look at your computer, if you have a desktop, if you look at it, count the number of fans that are in that computer. Bigger computers, gaming computers, actually are water cooled. Many of them are water cooled. But still, if they're air cooled, you might have 6 fans in there. Count them sometime. That's lots of energy being used to cool that computer. And that's part of the tremendous energy demand that is on the Earth. That's going to be placed on the Earth, this energy demand. It's so much that, according to many reports, Microsoft is trying to start or restart 3 Mile Island, where there was a nuclear accident and the plant was closed down in Pennsylvania, 3 Mile Island. Microsoft is going to attempt to get that plant operational to provide it energy for its AI, for Microsoft's AI. In September 2024, Microsoft agreed to buy the entire output of 3 Mile Island. That's 835 megawatts of pure electricity to help power its AI operations. That's the biggest deal that Constellation Energy has ever had with anyone. It's supposed to start in 2027. Constellation is investing about $1.6 billion to refurbish the major systems, the turbine, the generator, the transformer, the cooling, the electronics, etc. And the U.S. Department of Energy, under Trump, agreed to a $1 billion loan to help finance it with Constellation. Elon wants to build a space-based civilization. And here's some of the things he said about it in his Terafab speech, a speech about making chips for AI. This is what he had to say. "We aspire to be a galactic civilization. Galactic covering at least a galaxy. Back to the quote. So I think the future that everyone or most people I think would agree is the most exciting is one where we are out there among the stars. That's the most exciting for Elon. We're out there among the stars. You look up at the night sky, and if you have really good eyesight, you might see your Uncle Vic over there, right on that, around that star. And he goes on, finishes that off by saying, where a time when we are not committed forever to one planet. Then he goes on to say, we are starting a galactic civilization. He says, Tera Fab, the next step to becoming a galactic civilization. He thinks we need AI to become a galactic civilization. However, I think if you ask him, he'd say we need AI even if we never become a galactic civilization or we never try to become a galactic civilization. We still need AI. And if we need AI, Microsoft needs to start up 3 Mile Island, a closed nuclear power plant, to give just a little bit of energy it can, which is an enormous amount, to Microsoft. But it's not going to help out Tesla. And it's not going to help out NVIDIA. They're going to have to get their own. And the point is, there isn't enough space on Earth to do that, to build power plants that are that powerful. And he mentions that in his speech. You've got that not in my backyard effect where, hey, right now there's some easy pickings. We can pick spots to build these power plants. And nobody cares. But pretty soon, it's going to get close enough to people that they're not going to want it in their backyard. So not in my backyard. NIMBY. Like, yeah, it's cool and everything, but no, I don't want you to build it over there. Too close to my house. Too close to my city. And he's right, that's all true. And he's probably not wrong in the least about the benefits of putting it in space. He does say something in his speech, and I don't have it quoted, where he says there's a debate now about how to cool satellites in space, or how to do sufficient radiation cooling from satellites into space. He said says something like it's almost funny, it's comical, something to that effect. And he's right. There is a debate like that if you look around like, well, how could you do that? Well, as he points out, SpaceX knows how to do that. SpaceX has 10,000 satellites that it launched. That's not 10, that's not 1,000, that's 10,000 satellites in orbit. It's not a stationary orbit, they are traveling around the Earth. Starlink, SpaceX put them there for Starlink, their company. Those 10,000 satellites bring the internet to people in every continent. In almost every country on Earth can get the internet through those 10,000 satellites. Some of our members have Starlink internet at home right now and use it. So your antenna that's connected to your home, a small pizza box sized antenna, transmits the signal up to space. The signal is picked up by the satellite, which relays it by laser to other satellites, which then, when it gets to the right place, it goes back down to the Earth to a ground station. We connect to something, then it goes back up from the ground station to the satellite, through the lasers, back down to your gateway, your dish, and then your gateway, your modem actually. Well, actually it is a gateway provided to you by Starlink, and then it's shipped all over your house in the form of Wi-Fi. Musk describes Terafab as enabling cities on the moon and Mars, populate the entire solar system, and then sending spaceships to other stars. He says the massive chip production is essential to build the infrastructure for a multi-planetary and eventually galactic future, with hardened D3 space optimized ships that run hotter to reduce radiator mass in a harsh space environment. The speech was live streamed. Very sincerely at one point, Elon Musk said, "I just want to live long enough to see the mass driver on the moon, because that's going to be incredibly epic." This is a reference to electromagnetic railguns, which would be built on the moon and using electromagnetic propulsion would shoot things into space like satellites, cargo, things of that sort. It's done with nothing but electromagnetic propulsion. Electromag trains in some countries run that way. It is interesting that Musk thinks that he needs to substantiate the building of this Tera Fab factory because man needs to become galactic or intergalactic. Our race needs to spread across the galaxy. However, if you were to ask him, "Hey Elon, if we never decide to go beyond the Earth, do we still need these AI computers, and do we need to build all these chips?" He would say yes. I don't know him personally, but I think he would say yes to that question. We need it, and you don't need to substantiate it by talking about spreading across the galaxy. And it is interesting from the standpoint of communication why he would spend half a speech talking about interplanetary, intergalactic travel and the necessity for it, when he's talking about building a factory, a Terafab factory, to build chips. We already have these in Taiwan is where they mostly come from. Think about it. Why talk about intergalactic civilizations when you just want to build a chip factory? His announcement is we're building a Terafab building, March 21st. He said it in Austin. But he focused on outer space, not building the building, which is just a chip manufacturing building. The only uniqueness about it is that it's all in one. They're going to do the design and the lithography, that's the masks that they build, and the lasers, the ultraviolet lights, and the production, the making the silicone chips. You're going to all do it in one place instead of flying these things around from country to country oftentimes. And it's true, that's good. That's vertical integration, which Elon's known for. He's great, he can do that. But other than that, there do exist at Samsung and other places, there do exist many other places, factories to produce these chips. Yet, more than half the speech talks about intergalactic travel, space, civilization, the need for it, etc., etc. Even, I believe at some point, Elon mentioned this sounded a lot like science fiction. And I'd make this side comment. I don't think Elon Musk ever read any science fiction he didn't love. He seems to be driven through the ideas presented in science fiction, which isn't a bad thing because most science fiction has become science reality. Anyway, I thought it would be beneficial, and so did everyone else at Analytical Media, to break this down from a communication standpoint. What did he really say in that speech? And I know lots of people that we've talked to who didn't know what he said in the speech, honestly. They didn't know what Terafab was. They had no idea he was building a chip manufacturing facility. Communication is difficult, and sometimes it needs to be analyzed, broken apart, and translated so that we know what someone is trying to say. Hopefully we've done that for you. We thought it would be a good example, a good test of the things we've been teaching you about communication. You can help us grow by subscribing or clicking like. You can help us send our message out to other people. It'll reach more people by doing that. That's how the algorithm works at YouTube. Having said that, it would be nice if you clicked, liked it, subscribed, shared it, etc. But whether you have or not, we hope you've done well. We hope you're prospering, and we hope to see you again soon. Take care.